Welcome to Stardust Studios. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into negotiation.
Okay.
And we're basing this off of some really cool insights from the University of Michigan.
Nice. Yeah.
You'd mentioned, wanting to kind of get up to speed on this pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. As quick as possible.
So that's really our aim here, right? To give you some immediately applicable and hopefully even surprising information.
That's the goal.
So we have materials that kind of go through a four-stage process
Oh, cool.
for negotiation, and this is prepare, negotiate, close, and then perform and evaluate.
Okay.
So we'll touch on each of those, and we'll also look at some real-world outcomes and even some feelings and emotions involved in negotiation, which I think is interesting.
I think that's really interesting. I haven't heard too much about that, actually.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about.
Yeah, not very quantifiable, I guess.
Yeah. But our mission today is to try to equip you with some key takeaways to boost your understanding and your confidence when it comes to negotiating.
I like it. Let's do this.
So to kind of kick things off here, the material kind of starts with this fundamental question.
Great.
Like, should you even negotiate?
Yeah.
Like, is this something that's even worth doing? And what's really interesting is they talk about how there was this group of students,
Yeah.
and initially a lot of the students thought that that out of class negotiations, meaning like in the real world, like outside of the classroom setting, they thought those were likely to fail.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the data tells a very different story.
Interesting.
So they actually had a 69% success rate.
Wow. Okay.
And on average, they achieved a 40% discount, resulting in an average savings of about $1,580.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like those odds.
So that's huge, right? I mean, just to kind of like think about that for a second. It
Right.
really highlights the potential that we might be overlooking, right, in our daily lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, a statistic like that, what I find really fascinating about that is that it challenges that reluctance a lot of us have
Right.
when it comes to negotiating in those everyday situations.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think it suggests that simply asking can sometimes lead to some pretty positive results.
Absolutely. Now, the material also kind of goes into understanding the negotiation landscape, right? There's a couple of different approaches you can take.
Yeah.
There's position-based and interest-based negotiation.
Interesting. Okay.
So position-based is, you're stating your demands, right?
Okay.
You're saying, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Whereas interest-based negotiation is, you're exploring the underlying needs
Right.
of both parties.
Oh.
Yeah. So knowing the difference between these can really shape your strategy.
So I'm trying to think of a real world example. So like position-based is kind of like, I want this price.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas interest-based is maybe more like what are your needs, and how can we maybe find a solution that meets both of ours.
Exactly.
That's a really good distinction.
Yeah. And it's really key to kind of choosing the right approach for different situations.
Right.
Right. Whether you're, resolving some kind of disagreement or you're making a deal, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So from there, the sources kind of go into some key negotiation strategies and tactics.
Okay.
Right. We're talking about things like understanding your BATNA. Your BDATNA, which is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Okay.
So that's essentially, what's your plan B?
Right.
If you can't reach a deal, what are you going to do?
Right.
And having a strong BATNA gives you leverage.
Right.
Because you're not as you don't have to settle. Right. You have other options.
Right. So knowing your BTNA kind of empowers you to walk away if things aren't right.
Right.
It strengthens your position.
Absolutely. And then, setting ambitious but realistic stretch goals.
Okay.
That's also key.
Yeah, because you wanna push yourself and push the other side, but it also has to be somewhat within the realm of possibility.
Exactly.
To maintain credibility.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting is the material also touches on the emotions involved in negotiation.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's eye-opening to see the range of feelings that students reported.
What were some of them?
So they said things like, uncomfortable, embarrassed, terrified,
Wow, okay, yeah.
hesitant, guilty, weird, strange.
Yeah, I mean, those all make sense.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, they said things like pleased, delighted, thrilled,
Right.
happy, good, fun, enjoyable, excited.
Okay, yeah. So there's a huge range.
So there's this huge range, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really shows the personal aspect
Right.
of negotiation.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just a logical exercise.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think our feelings and the feelings of the other party significantly influence how things play out.
Totally.
So I think recognizing that can help you navigate those situations a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the materials also give some real-world examples, which I think are helpful to kind of illustrate these points.
Yeah, yeah. I like a good example.
So there's one example of a negotiation professor
Okay.
who was able to successfully save $120 on a big screen TV simply by doing some research, researching prices, visiting different dealers,
Okay.
and then leveraging a competitor's offer.
So this is a good example of the prep stage.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the power of preparation,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But then on the flip side, there's another example of a college professor who actually had a job offer retracted
Oh, wow.
after sending an email, kind of proposing, some provisions in the contract,
Right.
like a higher salary, reduced course, new course preparation.
Oh, I see. So they kind of overplayed their hand, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of backfired.
Okay.
So I think that example really underscores that, while it is important to negotiate for your interests,
Right.
it's also important to understand, the potential risks
Yeah.
and the other party's perspective.
Yeah. You can't go in guns blazing all the time.
Right.
You gotta be tactful, I guess.
Absolutely. So it's a balancing act. Right.
Well,
So if we're to kind of, sum all this up, I think the main takeaway from the University of Michigan's negotiation framework seems to be this.
yeah. What time?
Deciding whether or not to negotiate.
Okay.
It involves, considering both the potential benefits
Right.
and the potential risks,
Yeah.
and also, understanding and acknowledging your own feelings
Yeah.
about the process.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think that really high success rate that we saw
Right.
among the students, it really suggests that we should probably be negotiating more often.
Yeah. A lot of times it's probably worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I like that the sources kind of take this holistic view.
Yes.
They're combining strategic thinking with emotional awareness. And that I think that provides you with a really good foundation for approaching all kinds of different situations.
Absolutely.
With more confidence.
Yeah. So you see, in negotiation, it's about much more than just haggling,
Right.
right?
It's more nuanced
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah, it requires preparation, it requires understanding different approaches, and it requires being aware of the emotional dynamics at play.
Absolutely.
And again, that student success rate, it really makes you think.
Yeah.
Right, makes you think about all the opportunities that we might be missing out on.
Yeah. It's inspiring.
So this deep dive, I think, has offered some really valuable insights to help us think more strategically and effectively in a wide range of situations where negotiation is possible.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you for listening to the Stardust Studios podcast.